After all, for the last 50 years, that's exactly what has happened all along the Colorado River. Without the massive dams, there would have been no cities in the desert, no industry, no agriculture. In fact, there came a point about 30 years ago when it began to look as if there was no room left on the river for any more dams. Yet, the region was still growing fast and needed even more electricity and more water. For the last 600 kilometers of its course, before it flows into the sea, there was really precious little of the Colorado left in its natural state. In fact, it wasn't really a river at all, more just a series of dams and reservoirs, churning out electricity and storing water for the booming desert cities. To find a site for the next dam then, the engineers had to look a long, long way inland, over 1,000 kilometers from the mouth of the Colorado to this remote spot in the northern desert, at a place called Glen Canyon. Glen Canyon was finished in 1966, and it was the first time there had ever been an argument about whether building a dam on the Colorado had been the right thing to do. That argument was about the huge lake that built up behind the dam wall. On the one hand, there were those who said that the lake had made an already beautiful area even more beautiful. On the other hand, those against the lake pointed to how wasteful it all was. Every year, 725 million tons of water are lost by seeping into the sandstone rock around the shore. The same amount is evaporated into the air by the burning desert sun. And then there's the sheer size of the lake, 290 kilometers long, an enormous amount of land flooded forever. Maybe, said those against the scheme, it was time to leave the Colorado alone, once and for all. But there were many people who didn't see it that way at all, and they were the people living in the state of Arizona. Their point was that although huge amounts of Colorado water had already been sent to other parts of the desert, they had so far seen very little of it. So, to see to it that Arizona got its fair share, the engineers worked out that there was still enough water left in the river for one last big scheme. It starts here on the shores of a reservoir behind one of the old dams. The scheme begins by channeling a tenth of the Colorado's flow out of the reservoir into a large pumping station. The pumps push the water into huge pipes buried in the hillside, lifting it 250 meters upwards on its way into Arizona. The water emerges into what has been called the longest irrigation ditch in the world. The canal is a complicated piece of engineering. The whole thing is scanned by computer every 30 seconds. The computer knows how much water is in it, how much to deliver to users along the way, and how much the pumping stations have to cope with. Step by step, through each pumping station, the water rises close to 1,000 meters in height as it travels through Arizona. The total length of the desert crossing is an amazing 550 kilometers. It's a lifeline for the two biggest cities in Arizona, Tucson and Phoenix. By the time the water has traveled 300 kilometers from the river and passed through 4 pumping stations, it reaches this one, pumping station number 5 on the edge of the city of Phoenix. For a long time, the idea of bringing water all the way here from the Colorado River was thought to be crazy, a bit of a fairy story because of the immense distance involved. But now, at last, here it is. After £3.5 billion worth of canal building, water from the Colorado River, and quite possibly the most expensive water in the world, flows into Phoenix, the biggest oasis in the Arizona desert. The new canal has arrived in the nick of time because the Phoenix area is facing a real emergency. it's running seriously short of water. As well as getting its water by canals that bring it in from rivers, the city has always taken it from somewhere else too, from below the ground. The earth beneath Phoenix once held large amounts of water that built up over millions of years, when the climate in the area was much wetter than it is today. This water has been pumped out at an alarming rate. The level has dropped 3 meters every year and is now so far below the surface that it's getting beyond reach. In many of the farming areas in the Phoenix Oasis, the days when farmers switched on their pumps and turned the desert green may soon be ending. It's some of the most fertile land in the USA, famous for rich harvests of vegetables, fruit and cotton. But land in the desert can only come to life like this with water, and the time is not very far off when water supplies to farms will have to be cut back or will run out for good. The city of Phoenix too knows that its days of transforming the desert with vast amounts of water are numbered. It'll soon have to forget the idea that a new suburb will automatically get an artificial lake, that the desert heat will always be made more bearable by making everything look lush, green and cool. At the moment, nobody knows where any more water will come from. There's absolutely none to spare in the Colorado River. Indeed, there are already long stretches where the river is drying out and marshland is taking over. Having given water to 25 million people, the river is worn out. If the oases in the American desert are planning to go on growing as fast as they have until now, they may well have to think again.